Hello, and thank you for joining today. I am Joey Rosenberg, President of Product and Communications here at Women Who Code, the world's largest movement dedicated to inspiring women to excel in technology careers. And I am thrilled to be joined for today's show by Ivonne Aldana. She is the Network Director for Women Who Code Guatemala and also the Director of Engineering at Toptal. Today, we're going to be talking about all things motherhood, parenting while working and maintaining your career. And hopefully, we can offer some pro tips and practical advice, as well as just sharing a bit about our stories. I'm a mom. I'm a parent of an amazing, almost 3 year old. My wife and I have been living in Atlanta and moved to Florida during COVID just to get some outside space and sunshine for us and our daughter. And I'm thrilled to share some of that adventure with you today. Yvonne, a huge welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay, thank you, Joey. So I'm a software engineer, the one of the three directors of the Women Who Code Guatemala network. I am also a teacher. I teach at the public state university in my country, and I am the proud mother of an 8-year-old little girl. Her name is Adriana. Well, I also love cats very much, and I love my coffee. What else? Well, I've been working on technology for over 15 years. I've been working on teaching about software engineering and software architecture because I really like technology and especially the software engineering process. So, yeah, that's, I think, pretty much it.
That is amazing. I always am fascinated that people kind of assume that when you become a parent, you stop everything else. And in some ways, your world does stop a little bit, but there's so many facets of being a parent. And you were one of the people who started Women Who Code Guatemala a couple of years ago. I would love to hear a little bit about what inspired you to take that step, why you thought Women Who Code was important for your community, and how you balanced that while still teaching and working and being a parent.
Yeah, so I was reached out by Cristina. She's one of the directors. She was one of my students when I started teaching, and she talked to me about she was feeling inspired about having a teacher who was a woman because the gender gap in technology is what it is. So there's not a lot of women teachers in the university. So she reached out to me to talk about Women Who Code, and I was so excited because my daughter was about to be 5 years old, and at the beginning, I mean, I hear you are a mother of a 3-year-old, and that's very challenging for me. It was like the most difficult time was the first 3 or 4 years, maybe. Then after the 4 years, it's not easier, but like you can plan for other things, like they become more independent a little bit. So I think it was the right moment for me to take on, helping the network. I was really excited about doing a community, like being part of a community of women. And because, I was always the only woman in the teams in my school when I was studying, and still right now, I'm the only woman in my team at work. And we have very few women in leadership. So I was really excited about helping train women to be leaders and to bring more women into tech, knowing that technology it's only growing, and all of the businesses are using technology, so they need to come to technology, right? I think it was a good time. I started helping out. I was not sure about taking like a leadership role there, but then it was something that just happened naturally after a year. I worked in the first year as a leader of, we have focus areas like cloud technology, and I was into cloud technology at that time. So I was working as a leader there, and as an evangelist, I was taking care of the social networks. And then they asked me to be part of the directors because our network had like we grow a lot really fast. Actually, Women Who Code globally has told us like you can have another director, so the things are easier in the like for the other two directors. So I started last year, and it's been very fun. I'm not going to lie, I get tired because it's work, and on top of the other things that I do, I think that the time I take to have my meetings for the projects we have with Women Who Code is time that I am doing to work on myself. And I think that you need to do that to keep your sanity because motherhood is tough.
Wow, that is so true. And how you were talking about the different stages. So I'm at the 3 year mark almost. I'd love to share a few stories around that and then ask you to share kind of where you are now and how that's changed. Being a parent of a 3 year old, I will say, is also tiring. I completely share that with you. I'm not sure the last time I had a full night's sleep. That definitely doesn't stop anything. I think my journey to being a mother was unique, as everybody's is. It took us almost a decade to create her. It was a really long struggle. And so as a result, I'm an older parent, older than I had expected to be. And also, I think that's given me a really interesting perspective as a parent because she was actually our last attempt. I didn't even think it would work. I was kind of resolved to the fact that maybe I wouldn't be a parent. And so we kind of gave it our last shot. And then our daughter came into the world. And so one of the things that's given me is a perspective around just what a sheer miracle it is that any of us make it onto the earth. And it's made it really easy to prioritize her, which means that I deprioritize things like sleep, sometimes self-care, which I'm now learning to reprioritize. That's something I'm going through now. When she was born, she came about 2 weeks early. And it was my first lesson in understanding that I have no control over this whole journey of being a mom. And actually, she's in the driver's seat and she's going to continue to surprise me all along the way. And she's continued to do that. And so, in terms of balancing my career, I highly recommend people, if you're thinking about becoming a parent or you're about to be a parent, really take advantage of leave. You definitely need it, or I needed it in the beginning. I wish I have had longer leave even. And so that kind of early stages were really interesting. My friend told me that in the beginning, it would actually be easier to balance your career. And she was right because my daughter, when they're little, they kind of sleep and they hang out. But as they grow, they suddenly become this ball of energy and they really need you a lot more to be engaged and to help them just experience every day. And so that's the stage we're in now. I'm currently planning a birthday party and she's out at the park at the moment. So she's very active. She loves to be outside. And I want to be part of that, right? And so at the same time, I'm balancing my career and working. And so definitely means you lose a lot of sleep. And I'm just learning how to reprioritize myself and self-care. So I would love to learn from you. You're 5 years ahead of me. How do you do that? And what's it like now that you're past that stage? And how do you prioritize that self-care piece? How do you get to the point where you're back to putting yourself at least towards the front of the line and learning to do that?
Well, this is a very interesting question because I had to deconstruct, I don't know a better word for this, the concept of being a mother, of being a mom. Because I think it is in your head, I don't know how it is like in other places of the world, but in my country and I think in Latin America, there's mindset, or I don't know how to say it, about what being a mother is. And it has to do with suffering. Like you have to give up your life, your ambitions, everything, and just take care of your kids. And when I see, like, when we were talking about this discussion and talking about the stages, I was thinking, like, the first stage for me was I was very afraid that I was not going to be a good mother. That was my first stage. Then my second stage was, okay, the baby is here, and what am I going to do? Like, people say, you'll know what to do, your instinct is going to come up. And I was like waiting for the instinct, and it was nothing was coming. Like, I didn't know what to do. Why is she crying? Why am I not able to nurse properly? Am I a bad mother because I'm not being able to nurse because my nipples hurt, you know? And so I was actually suffering and not happy about that. I started reading this book that was called Rebel Mom, a Rebel Mom, or something like that. It was in Spanish. And it was about questioning the idea that you have about being a mom, because I think the idea that I had about what a mom is, I was not going to meet that expectation from myself and keep my sanity, you know? So I needed to deconstruct that part, make time for myself, look out for resources. Like, you don't have to do everything by yourself. If you have a partner, ask for help. Also plan for things, do lists and stuff like that, but also take time to unwind from motherhood and just to be yourself. I think that my daughter motivated me to be the woman I am now, because when I was pregnant, I didn't know the gender of my daughter, but I was hoping for her to be a boy. I didn't know why. Then when I was in my second trimester, and I need like the doctor told me you're having a girl. I was not upset, like I was not angry. I was scared because I realized then that in my mind, women come to the earth to suffer, or in my country to suffer. So she made me like look out to be part of communities of mothers. But then being part of a community of mother, it's hard too, because there's expectations of what to be a good mother is, like the expectation that I was telling that you do in your head, like, right? So maybe question those expectations and evolve as you go through the different years of your child, because the stages, I mean, when you ask what stage you are on, you're talking about how old is your daughter or your son, right? But it's actually, things change so much. Things change. Like when they are babies, you see the changes each week when they are really small. Then you see it every month. Then at 6 months, there are cognitive changes, and you need to react to those changes. It's the same as they grow. So just pay attention to their cues, but also to your own cues, like as a woman, like am I comfortable with this? Like, for example, with the pandemic, I was losing my mind with the school here in my house, and my work and my teaching. I was actually losing my mind. So we needed to do things to change. I talked to my partner, and then we hire a neighbor who's a teacher, and she came to help her with the homework, because I didn't have time. Like, and that's okay. I'm not being a bad mom. I don't know if my message is like, I hope I am making myself understandable, because what I say is like, pay attention to how you feel as a woman. Like, if you are too tired, that's not, like, you don't have to suffer. Just try to look for resources, for help, ask for help. That would be something that I will tell you. And try to enjoy each stage your daughter or son goes through. Try to enjoy that, because it happens fast. And people said it's going to happen fast, and then sometimes that's like an excuse to just hang in there, like if you're very tired, because it's going to pass. And yes, it's true, but also enjoy. It's very important to enjoy each stage, right? So, and also, there are times where you're going to want to cry, and that's fine. Cry, like, it's okay. It's okay to cry and let it all go.
Yeah, I thank and thank you for saying that, for just sharing openly that you're not always sure, right? I feel like this parallels our careers too. I mean, imposter syndrome is real, parent guilt is real, mom guilt is real. And so I know for me, resources have been really important. I read a ton of books, especially in the beginning. Now I like listen to podcasts and read blogs and things like that. But I definitely think that just admitting that it's hard work, it doesn't make it not fun, but it is hard. I have a blast every single day being a parent, and I wish people would emphasize that even more too, because even though it is hard, it's really fun. And of course, there are days that are more trying than others, so I don't want to discount that. If you're out there having a not so fun day, I also agree it will change, right? So just hang on, and tomorrow or a week from now, it might be different. So, for example, my daughter's teething at the moment, which means nobody's getting any sleep. She's cutting her very last molars. And so once we get through this hurdle, I know we'll get back to a normal sleep schedule and a normal eating schedule. So all that's coming, I just have to hang on a couple more weeks. But thank you for saying, for sharing that you don't always know if you're doing it right. One of the things I learned early on is that pregnancy brain happens in both gestational parents and non-gestational parents. And that's because when you first have a child, you're learning so much that your brain has to dump information. And I think I underestimated how much you have to learn as a parent. I follow this group called Visible Child, and I really like their philosophy. It's just about seeing your child as a human, a whole person, and really listening to their voice and listening to their needs. And my wife and I try to use that philosophy to just try to see her and hear her. And I've also really enjoyed if you're in a position, you're at the director level. If you're in a position where you can shape your company culture, for me, it's about showing up honestly. I mean, my team will tell you I show up, my hair's not always fixed. In fact, I would say it's less often fixed than others. I don't always wear makeup. If my daughter needs to run into the room and needs me for a second, I'll pause and focus on her and just welcome her into my world, in whatever she wants to be. So I also have really enjoyed being able to shape company culture by just showing up as me. And I think that's important for everybody to do. But as parents, I think we often think you have to, put your child off in a box or hide them away so you can put on your professional persona, but actually, like, just show up as you. And I think everything else will fall into place. But I love when my daughter runs in and wants to say hello to me, and even if I'm on a Zoom call. The other really interesting thing for me that happened is my daughter had her first birthday on a Zoom call because we went into lockdown for the pandemic before she turned 1. So she's spent 2/3 of her life in this land of COVID. So there's been so much change in the last couple of years. Navigating that with a young child, or a child of any age, you talked about, the at-home schooling being such a challenge. Navigating the world we're in today with a child adds this extra layer of complexity. And what I found in the US, children ages 5 and above have access to vaccines if their parents want them to have access to it. But for people with young children, our child doesn't have access to a vaccine yet and won't until it's either approved or we get a couple of years down the road. And so for us, we're still navigating a world where there's a real risk for her, that we can't mitigate. And I think people have forgotten what that's like. And so when we say things like, "Oh, we're not eating in restaurants yet," or "We're not doing this yet," I think people have, and at least the people around us have all kind of forgotten what that's like to navigate that world. And so it's been really interesting to navigate that world with a child and try to teach them the things they need to know to be safe, but also help protect them a little bit and let them be a child and be free and have all the experiences they need to have while trying to keep them safe. So that's been a particular challenge for our family. What has it been like for you these last couple of years?
Well, so in my previous, when I was talking about things earlier, I was talking about how my daughter made me the woman that I'm today, right? So I started to look for remote works, a remote job because of her, because I wanted to be with her. So I can relate to what you say, that you're bringing her to your world, right? The thing is that I was used to her going to the school, right? And then I would have, the meetings that you sometimes have meetings that you can't be interrupted, like if you're meeting with a client or something like that. But then when she was here, it was a process to explain to her, like, I'm on a call and you need to not come here to this room. But, with children, it's like repetition, right? If she came to my, like, here and hi, and first time, it's okay. But, this is the type of meeting that you shouldn't be in. So now I just say, like, I'm in a meeting and she knows she's not going to come here. And for me, like, I need that space to do my work. So in my office I work, and then outside my office I am her mom, because at the beginning it was for a short period of time that we shared, she being here and me being at work, because I tried to start really early in the morning so that when she came back from school, I would like finish my work really fast and then be with her. But now is the whole day, right? Because she's on virtual school, right? So it was hard, it was tough, but I think that if you explain the things to children, and this is something that I think people, a lot of people don't get, that children are very, very, very smart. You need to trust that they understand you. Sometimes they understand you, but they don't want to do what you're saying, right? But they do understand you and they understand things. So you have to take the time to explain to them. But I'm not going to lie, it was very, very tough at the beginning. Then after the first year, of the pandemic, we had like a better time because she was used to me and my husband being here all the time. So she knew like they are working right now, but then we're going to have lunch and we're going to chat. Or they are working right now, but then they will end and we'll see a movie or we'll spend some time together. She knows now that she's 8 years old. Things, have a time lapse, because when they are younger, like your child, they don't know. They don't know, like they don't have that sense of how much time is one activity going to take, right? And regarding, vaccines and stuff like that, we don't have the vaccine, even though my daughter is 8 years old, because here in my country, we don't have access to that yet. She's coming back to school slowly. She's going 2 days a week, and you have no idea how excited she is, how they missed being with other kids. It's like she has to go, like, get up very early in the morning. It's still dark, but she does it so happy. Like, I'm going to school tomorrow, and she's so excited about going to school and playing with their friends. And I get emotional just to talk about this, because I couldn't wait for her to go and play with other kids, like the normal days. I don't know how to call that, but like when I was younger, going to school was exciting for me. I would love going to school, and I see her so happy about going and playing with her friends and meeting her teachers, and just being there with people, with the mask and with the putting the gel and stuff like that. But as I told you, they are so smart. They are so smart. Children are so smart. I in the beginning I was like, they are going to take away their mask. They're not going to do it. They do. They are the first. Like, my daughter is the first who puts on the mask, here. So yeah, it was a very big challenging thing at the beginning, but now I think we are good.
Yeah, it's funny. Even at 3, my daughter's that way. She's very happy to wear a mask because she knows she gets to go inside somewhere. And in fact, if we're going in and we don't have ours on, she'll say, "No, no, no, Mama, you put your mask on."
Yeah.
So everybody does it. But I agree with you, seeing them light up in those social situations, and like also she's slowly returning to those spaces, and like, or entering them for the first time in our case. But like seeing them light up is amazing. Another topic that comes up quite often with parenting, people say, "Oh, how have you changed?" So I'd love to talk a little bit about that. I got some great advice from a woman named Cheryl Conti, who I think is phenomenal. I met her when I was probably, I I must have been 9 months pregnant. No, that's not true. I was, I could, because I couldn't fly. Here, you're right. It's recommended that you don't fly after a certain period of time, and I went right up until the very last minute traveling that my doctor would allow, because before I became a mom, I traveled about 50% of the time for work and for volunteering, and Cheryl told me, look, when you become a mom, you're going to become a new person. And you have to let go of everything that you think you know about yourself and then rise like a phoenix from the ashes as this new person. And so she's like, the faster you can get on board with this concept, the better. And I really think about that advice a lot of the time, because I think before you become a parent, of course, you're in this stage of your life where you don't have children, and then you become a parent, and it's like you want to pull all of these great things about yourself forward and stay true to yourself, and at the same time understand what this new version of yourself is. So for me, I was really worried about what my life would look like as a new mom and traveling all the time, because I love to travel. It's like in my soul. I shaped my whole career and my education and my volunteer experiences around kind of being a nomad. I mentioned at the beginning of COVID, we moved to Florida. Like, I've never been afraid to change geographies, and in fact prefer just immersing myself in different cultures and different experiences around the world. And so I was really worried about that coming into parenthood. So when I first came back to work, one of my very, very first travel experiences that I went to Merida, Mexico, and we had a leadership event. I cried the entire way to the airport. I just sobbing in my Uber all the way to the airport. I felt terrible because I had a really tough postpartum period. I physically felt terrible. And so in Mexico, I'm in this place that I really wanted to explore. I so appreciate the network in Merida, and we actually flew in folks from other parts of Mexico, and I so wanted to spend time with them and go exploring with them, and I just physically couldn't. And it was really, really hard for me emotionally to realize, okay, your body is telling you you need something different than what you maybe needed even 6 months ago before you had this child. And so it was a really big wake up call to me that something was going to have to be different. And so I started trying to figure out this new version of me as a parent. And then it didn't seem like that far into the future when things started shutting down. I was getting ready to head to India in February of 2020, and that's when kind of everything started shutting down, and the very first time we had to cancel a conference. And to be honest, I had worked myself up. I was so prepared for this trip to be away, and I was ready to do it, like really fiercely step back in to this space. Emotionally, I felt so ready. And then when that happened, it surprised me at how big of a relief it felt to be able to stay home during that period of time. And of course, I missed the pieces that I really had wanted to go and see the team in Bangalore, and I really wanted to be there and wanted to have that experience. But there was some part of me that felt relieved, and I was like, okay, I'm going to learn from that. What's going on here? And then, of course, most of us, maybe everyone listening to this has spent some time, if not a lot of time, at home in the last few years since the pandemic. And I had to learn to sit still because of that. And that was really hard for me. But at the same time, I got this huge gift of spending time with my child every day and not sleeping in hotel rooms and not being on the road. And I came to really love it. I love spending time with her every day. And I love being able to go visit her when I have 10 minutes between meetings or something like that. And so, what I have carried forward from the pre mom me is that I still love adventure. I still love to travel, even though it looks different now. We do lots and lots of road tripping. And I still want to explore the world with my daughter when it feels safe for her to do that. But the things that have changed is that I 100% want to be in a remote workplace. I don't think I ever, at least for the the next couple of years while she's still young, definitely don't want to go back to an office full time. That's just off the table for me. Those are some things that I'll definitely hang on to. And while travel is important, there's a different kind of priority I have around it. If it's and the kind of travel. So I want to travel with my family and work them into that, where I used to be, happily kind of going off on my own. So I think a lot of that has changed. What about you? What's changed for you, and what did you hold on to? What was that transition like for you?
Oh, well, I wrote what I wanted to talk. You know what how have I changed? I've changed so much. I don't think I'm a different person like all over because I still have my core things that make me me. But I had to, practice empathy. Like I think my daughter came and teach me that. That's an important thing. Another thing is that I I surprise myself about things that I enjoy. Like I was telling you that it was hard to be in like having the school here in my house, doing homeschooling and stuff like that. But when that happened, like when that passed, like my daughter gets to say, my mom and dad teach me to write and read because we did. Like that was our job, right? So that's so cool. And she's has spent more time with me and my husband than like in this time of being here than I ever did with both my parents through my whole childhood because we've had breakfast together, lunch together, dinner together and talk a lot. That's very great and I enjoy it because like for me being a mom at the beginning was a struggle when I had a really traumatic birth. because my daughter was ahead of her time. I don't know how to say this in English, but I had her when I was starting my 8th month of pregnancy. So it was very tough. And as you say before, like that was the first thing that make real for me, like you no longer are going to do plans. You have to improvise, right? And so that changed for me because I'm very methodic. I like to have a plan and have lists and have everything in place. And that's the way that I do my work. But being a mom changed that because you have to, because if you don't improvise, like if you don't are dynamic about your plans, and your personal plans and your career plans too, because I was approached by a lot of companies at the beginning of at the beginning of the pandemic to work, but to move to that place, to Spain and other places, and Colombia but I was like, no, I want my daughter to be raised in my country and have interaction with my family and my husband's family, because family is very important for us in Latin America. So I didn't used to enjoy family gatherings. I don't all the time still, but now when I see her interacting with her cousins and her aunts and stuff like that, I enjoy that, and I know she's very happy. So that changed for me too. And regarding my career, it opened up for me when I started to look for jobs outside my country and start working with companies that work remotely. I have a better paycheck now. So that's good. I think I feel more comfortable about change and about not following a plan because of motherhood than now if I am in the remote companies and things change. Because in my first job was like a company was being sold, and so I was moved to another company, or I was part of a RIF, a releasing force, and I had to look for another job or another team. Now I'm not afraid of that. I used to be very afraid about not being able to find a job, fast enough to cover my expenses. But now it's like things change and I need to get on board with that, and I'm doing it and I'm making it. That's something that I think motherhood brought to me.
I cannot agree more. 100%. I think change is something that being a parent will teach you really fast. I also think it's interesting what you're saying about that whole thinking about career differently. So we often get asked in the community, when should I start planning to have a child? And in my experience, it took me so long to create her. I started planning way far in advance, and if I had started making career decisions that early, I would have been shaping my whole life around a child that wasn't here yet. And so, from my perspective, I'm like, well, the best thing you can do is work for a company that values you. So, look for companies that have good parental leave as a component, especially in the US where it's not required by law to have parental leave. So, look for a company that when it's time, you'll have access to that benefit. But before you have children, take the risk. It's okay to make some different career decisions, and then there will be a period that comes where, at least for me, once you have a child, there's a period of time where you really need some stability, if that's possible. But as you say, as things change, you figure it out. You go with the flow and you figure it out, and those things will come. But there is a point in time where you can start making career decisions again. And so it's only a short window in the scheme of your career, but make sure you go for it for as long as you can, and then pause when you need to pause. That would be my advice. And then make sure that when that time to pause is over, and if you want to go for it again. You don't have to stop because you're a parent. You can still build your career. What do you think? Does that resonate with you, or do you have any different
It
advice
does.
you want to add?
No, it definitely does. Like when if somebody asks me when should I apply for a child, and if that's something that has to do with the career, I don't know, like do what you love for work. And even if you don't do what you love, do what you're good at on work. And one thing is technology is like a big, like the industry is so big, you can go to many areas. And I don't know, I feel like as women, sometimes we think a lot, like more than we should, on taking and making decisions. But what I've seen is that when you say I'm doing it, and then no matter what happens, I'm doing it, you will do it. Just like, I know it sounds very cliche, like believe in yourself, but it's true. Like you should believe on your capabilities. You should believe that you can learn new things. And as Glennon Doyle says, you can do hard things. I love that saying. I use it a lot because like you can do hard things. Like if you take a pause, for example, you were saying sometimes people can afford to take a pause. In my case, I couldn't afford to get a pause. You know, I had my maternity leave because I was working for a company based in Guatemala, in my country. So I took 3 months because I took all my vacations and all my maternity leave. It was 3 months. And that was fine for me in my case. I went to work and wanted to go to work because I was very overwhelmed with my newborn. So I went to work. I had like here in my country, we have help of our parents, even if we don't want to. They are like, I'm helping you with your baby. Like you don't get a say almost. So they will take my daughter and take care of her the first 2 years. So I went to work. But then when she was like a 3 year old and she was like, I was getting to know her and her personality because they talk more, they have more conversation as you are with your child right now, I guess. Like she has, or he has, I don't remember if a boy or girl, but they have their own personality and you're getting to know them and it's very interesting. And I had a break of the Holy Week. We take a week of vacation here at my country. When I get back to work, I was crying because I wanted to be more time with her. And that was what inspired me to get a remote job, right? And then the remote job came with all the instability that I was telling you about. But honestly, like what I did to get the job was to put myself and study, like sit down and study and learn things, learn about technology, and then take risks and apply to the positions, even though I didn't like have all the check marks for all of the positions. Apply to the positions, go to interviews and do things, and I was able to get my job. And I had to repeat this a lot of times in my career, and I've moved a lot. And it's like I have a lot of I've learned a lot from change. And that's something that, you know, I felt very bad about my career because I have um, a lot of different areas. I've worked in different areas. And I was upset about that because I thought there's like, if someone wants a back-end developer, a front-end developer, a full-stack developer, I mean, I've done some development, I've done some project management, and I have a lot of little pieces. Then one friend of mine in the community told me, you know what, you need to read a book that's called Range by David Epstein, I think, where he talks about the how you generalists, and that's why I am. And then I own it. Like I own what I know and I own what I've been, and I use that to get new jobs. So I think that we have to use what we have. We have to use the resources we have. And like I don't want to be like a motivational speaker here, but I do think that we need to believe in what we can do. That's very, very, very important. And if you want to have a child, do it. Like do it. We don't know what we're like. You have no idea what you're getting into, because I think you know what to be a parent once you are a parent. Like you see that and you think, I'm going to be like this kind of mom. Like I wanted to have a natural birth. I wasn't able to because my daughter came and it was an emergency. I wanted to do nursing for a year because that's the best gift you give to your child. I wasn't able to do that, and that's fine. Like make peace with things. I think that would be.
Okay, I'm over here laughing because same experience, like birth plans, birthing plans. I don't even know why we do that to ourselves. I feel like because we went through this whole parenting class and they gave us all these forms to fill out about what we wanted, and I realize now looking back that they just have you do that to make you feel like you have some sense of control, but it just goes right out the window. Like literally nothing happened. I think the only thing that happened that was on my birth plan was the music playlist. Like I think that's it. Yeah, you are yeah, you know, it's out of it's definitely not yours to choose. You have to learn to go with the flow. So thank you for saying that. Okay, so I want to ask two final questions here. So one, I want to come back to the joy of parenthood. I really enjoyed listening to your stories, and I've really loved listening to you talk about your child, talk about parenting and being a mom. What's your favorite thing about being a mom?
Um, Hearing my daughter talk about the things I talk because it's so funny. Like I look at a lot of things about fighting for women's rights and including women in technology. So it's so funny to see how she's absorbing everything. Like you think that she's not listening to you because she's doing her own thing and painting or whatever, and you're talking like I'm having a meeting with the Women Who Code Guatemala team or something like that. Then she has a project, a technology project now, and she has to do a game. You know, the name of the game is Cats Who Code. But it's so funny because like she doesn't know how to write in English because we are native Spanish speakers. So she writes it as she hears it. It's so fun. The most fun thing for me is seeing her being herself, but having pieces of me. I love seeing pieces of me in her. Not all the pieces are good because she has a temper and I have a temper. So, but that I think that's the most fun for me. And also, I love cooking with her, like doing cupcakes and stuff like that. And I love that she knows if you ask her how to do a cake, she knows it. I love how she learns things. And I love how genuine is when she's happy, when she's enjoying things. The true happiness, you can see it in her eyes. I love that part of being a mom.
That's amazing. Yes, plus one to all of that. And I'm going to add curiosity. I love how curious my daughter is about everything, and she's just constantly learning. I agree with you. They're just like soaking it up. And it's funny to see it come back in these ways that you can't imagine. But I love how curious she is about the world, and I love exploring the world with her and going on adventures with her. I just think there's so much joy that she's brought into my life. I definitely love, I feel like it's an absolute honor to be her mom. So, last, I want to close with pro tips. So, if there are working moms out there listening to this, or people who are about to become parents or moms, what advice would you offer them?
My number one advice would be to ask for help when you need it. You're not being weak. It's okay to ask for help. You know, that's my number one. And then trust yourself. Read a lot because we don't know everything, and it's okay. But also, when you're reading authors or blogs or whatever, don't take one opinion. Just have a lot of different opinions from different people and take what it feels good for you when it comes to making decision as a parent. And number three, and very important, try to enjoy every stage. It's hard, but try to enjoy everything. Try to do it. Like try to look at your child each day in the eyes and see how much they love you. You know, my therapist, because I'm in therapy, she tells me that children from 0 to 7 years old, the only thing they want is their parents to love them. That's everything they ask from their parent. They don't care about things. They just want to have your love. So just make sure to show them that you love them. I think that would be my three tips.
That's amazing. I think my pro tips would be parent the child that's right in front of you. I 100% agree with reading, look at all the resources, but every child is different. Every person is different, right? And so if a child is a person, so I think they come with their own unique needs and their own quirks and likes and dislikes. So parent the child that's right in front of you. So take all of that advice and figure out which one applies to your child. Be there for them, just like you were saying. And then I would say apply that same advice to you as you're trying to balance your career. Go for the career that's right in front of you. And when you need the part of your career that gives you more space for your child, do that. When you don't, do that. You just have to lean into wherever you are in your career. And then the last piece I would say is model being a parent wherever you are, because that's who you are. Don't be afraid to show up to work that way, and let them be part of your life everywhere you are. It'll make your workplace experience that more rich if you're allowed to do that, if you can make that space, and it'll create more time to be with your kiddo. So, thank you so much, Yvonne, for joining us. Thank you for sharing your experience and being honest about this whole journey of being a parent, of being a mom. I hope everyone listening will join us at Connect Recharge. That's our conference that's coming up. If you want to connect with more technologists, including technologists who are also moms and also parents, I hope to see you there. And thanks again for listening.
Thank you.